This is the Bama Podcast with Marty Solomon. I'm his co-host, Brent Billings. Today we are joined by Kevan Chandler, author of the book We Carry Kevan and founder of the nonprofit organization We Carry Kevan. He grew up in the foothills of North Carolina and has a bachelor's degree in counseling from John Wesley College. He was the second of his siblings to be diagnosed with spinal muscular atrophy, but he left his wheelchair behind and traveled across Europe with friends for 3 weeks in a backpack, the subject of his book. He's gone on to inspire and enable so many others to find this kind of adventure through their own communities. Kevan, welcome to the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
So, Kevan, we got to ask you if there's anything you would add to that. I mean, that was a pretty good introduction. I want to add like sound effects and everything to that. But anything you would add to, the finer things of life? What else do we need to know about you and your growing family and all of those kind of things? Tell us more.
So I got married last year, which was a really awesome thing, probably the best thing in my life next to salvation. My wife's name is Katie, and we met when my friends and I went to China, which was a follow-up to our trip to Europe when we left my wheelchair, and we just hit it off back in 2018, and our friendship grew into a marriage in 2020. So we had a fun little COVID wedding and survived that. So we live in Fort Wayne and enjoying life together. So some other finer things. I am obsessed with pears, the fruit. And I don't know, I feel like since you said the finer things, I should mention something about cheese, but nothing comes to mind.
I do love that. I do love cheese as well. So.
Well, that's great. Maybe you can also share a little bit about how you know Marty or how you found Bama or whatever the connection is that brought us all together today.
Yeah, I learned about Bama from my friends, the Fingerleys, and my other friends, the Edmonds, Damon Edmonds and his wife. They all were listening to you guys and a few years ago and even met Marty and everything, and just thought, this would be something that Katie and I would enjoy, both as a podcast, and then also they wanted for us to meet Marty and spend time with him. So we started listening to the show starting way back at the beginning in Genesis appropriately, and just moved on up from there, and really enjoyed it, benefited from it. It's been fun, in this first year and a half of marriage for that to be part of our dialogue as we, when you're first married, you create shared experiences and shared terminology and things like that. So it's been a joy to have the teachings of Bama be part of that. And so a few months ago, Marty was passing through with his family, and we got to hang out and have a meal together, and it was great. So here we are.
Oh, yes, I can. Oh, the Fingerleys. Every time you say that name, my heart warms just a tad bit.
Right.
They're such good people. I remember meeting them. I remember her telling me about this Kevan character and his story and how she met him and his nonprofit work. I remember her saying we had to meet, and I had to meet him, and there was this other guy named Damon that she knew, and I had to meet him, and that was the story was incredible. That was all well and good. And then somewhere along the way, Maria said something about how Kevan had this love of a good friend of his named Andrew Peterson, who is one of my favorite artists. And I immediately went, okay, well, that means we share a lot, even more of the finer things of life in common. I love Andrew's music. I love his writing. We should throw links to his stuff in the show notes, Brent Billings.
Yes.
But he's always been one of my favorite musicians, and my My kids have loved his Wing Feather Saga. We named our dog Kalmar.
Oh, that's where that name comes from.
Yeah, that's where that name comes from.
That's awesome.
So, just when she said that, it was just like, oh man, not only is his story amazing, but there are like all these personal things that we love together as well. So I was really excited to be able to start texting back and forth with Kevan, then meet him in person. She gave me somewhere in the middle of that. She gave me his book, We Carry Kevan, and we'll talk about that a lot today. But man, just some great stuff in there, and I was really excited when I got to meet you this last year. My kids loved it. It was just a great time. You're surrounded by great people, and that was awesome. So good stuff.
Yeah.
So Kevan, most of our listeners probably don't know who you are. Some of them might. Many of them probably don't know who you are. They may not. A lot of people listen to us while they're driving. They probably don't get a chance to look at a photo. And there are some more obvious things that if we were sitting in the room with each other, we would notice. And if all we're doing is listening to voices, we would not notice. And if we were paying attention to what Brent said, we heard it and picked up on it. But maybe could you tell us about some of the things, some of the circumstances, some of your situation that maybe doesn't communicate quite as well through an audio format? Tell us a little bit about who you are in your situation.
Yeah. Well, it's sometimes it's hard to talk about, but I am a redhead, so I have to struggle through that every day. So as Brent mentioned earlier, I have a rare muscular neuromuscular disease called spinal muscular atrophy, which basically the short version is that the message from my brain to my spinal cord gets kind of messed up along the way, and that affects my muscles and how they react. Just in that they're weaker, they don't really get to activate like they should, and so over time they atrophy. And so I spend most of my time in a wheelchair. I can't walk, and it kind of manifests itself differently in each person that has it. But for me, I'm in a wheelchair. My right arm doesn't work, and my left arm is hanging in there, but it's pretty weak as well. I have to be careful with respiratory things and energy levels and stuff like that. But so that's what I deal with in that sense, kind of on a daily basis.
And Marty and I both absolutely loved your book, and I was really impressed by all of the setup you give for that, as far as like you have so many friends who are involved in your life, and you just kind of walk through like, what is the process of bringing on a new person and helping them be able to help you and care for you. And I just really enjoyed that process, like being able to understand, like without having actually met you, like what is it like to be one of your friends. I just really felt like I was part of it, even though we haven't met. So that was one of the good parts about your book, I thought. And but yeah, so you have all these friends, and they were obviously instrumental in your trip to Europe. And how do you develop those kinds of relationships? How do you get, I mean, it sounds like some of those, like you meet people and they're just immediately drawn to you or your story or whatever it is. And you just develop these friendships so quickly. But maybe just talk about those friends and what they mean in your life, and whatever you want to say about them.
Yeah. How long do we get to talk for this episode? I could go on for a while. It's funny because I've grown up with the disabilities that I have, and so my needs are very common to me. They're very normal to me, and so I don't always think of how awkward they might be for other people, or I don't know. I've also always as a result, invited people to be part of helping me and be part of my life. And so as I do that, I guess you could say it kind of has gotten easier over the years, because I'm actually working on a new book right now. I haven't told this to anyone, so here you go, guys. Working on a new book about inviting people into your need and allowing your need to be an open door to hospitality, to serve others and love them. Kind of letting whatever your weakness is, letting that be the icebreaker, if you will, to love others. And so that's something that I've just kind of slowly learned throughout life, and getting to know people and then saying, "Hey, do you want to help out with what I have going on?" And something with the trip to Europe and the guys that did that with me is that we wanted to do that because we were friends, and the way we had to do that looked very different because of my disabilities, because of my needs. And I think that applies to most, if not all, of my friendships, which is, if we're going to be friends, the dynamics are going to look different from what other friendships may look like. If you want to hang out with me, you're going to have to drive my van, like we're going to have to, if you want to go out to eat together, you might need to cut up my food, kind of thing, Marty's experienced that now. And so there's just a level of vulnerability that comes with a friendship with me. And I think part of that is, rather than explaining that when I meet someone, I'm not going to go up to someone and be like, "Hey, you're really cool, we should be friends, but you're going to have to take me to the bathroom at some point in our life," rather than doing that. Right. It just starts as any other friendship, and you start chatting, or you're introduced through other people, and you have shared experiences. And as the friendship develops, it just naturally goes into these deeper places of not just me being vulnerable, but then they in turn also being vulnerable with me. And I think I read a book a few years ago about men and how they communicate, and it said in it that most men don't go deep with more than maybe one or two other men. And I remember sitting in a coffee shop reading that, and I burst out laughing. Everyone looked at me. I'm like, "Sorry," but it was because at that time, and even now, I have like 20 guys that I get to go deep with on a daily basis, because my need gives us room for that. And so, a lot of my responsibility is to foster that, and then to care for them in the process, and not just make it all about myself, which is certainly a challenge sometimes, and sometimes it's pretty easy, but that's part of life as well. But I think that it creates a sustainable friendship, just like with any friendship with anyone.
And I'm sure there are more details, and it probably takes several hours to walk through the process with a friend as you're training them. But there's almost just like this simplicity to it, where it's like, if you just do it once, it's so much easier going forward. Like, it's just so disarming. It's like, oh, because you just have all these ideas in your mind about what that's going to be like. Yeah. And it's like, no, it's just this, and it's actually so simple. And I love that. I used to work for an airline, and I only had to do this a handful of times, but there's this thing called an aisle chair, which most people probably won't know about, but it is like the worst contraption imaginable. Like, an airplane aisle is so narrow, and you have to develop this wheelchair that will fit down that aisle, which is like, it's like an airplane seat, only half the size. It's crazy. but there's always this rush to like get everyone on board, and like we got to have an on-time departure, and it's like, man, I wish I could just spend like an extra 10 minutes with this person, because I always felt like I feel like if I could just talk to them for a few extra minutes, this would be so much easier. And it's like I never know what I'm doing, and they could probably explain it to me with just a little more time. So I just loved that picture of your friends, like being able to like, when you were at that house with your two friends, towards the beginning of your book, talking about like, oh, we just, we spent the morning together, and we just went through everything. It's like, oh, that's such a beautiful picture.
Yeah. I have a friend who once told me, he did, I would say, every aspect of caregiving that you can imagine with me. Over the years, we have traveled a lot together and everything. And he once told me, I asked him to do something, and he did it. He was like, oh yeah, sure. And I said, is that like awkward or difficult for you? And he said, well, everything you ask me to do is weird until I do it. and then it's normal, and then it's fine. And so, like you said, Brent, it's like, it's the first time may be difficult because you don't have the context or the experience. And then after that, you've done it. So there you go. And you move forward. But also, something that I've had to learn and acclimate to is that, excuse me, I have friends who, have traveled with me. They've showered me. They helped me with the restroom, all kinds of things. And then I have other friends who have only helped me with the restroom. And then I have other friends who have never done any of it, but they're still close and dear friends, and so they have their own means of supporting me, and I support them. And so I think that's important to remember as well as, I don't know. I wanted to add that qualifier that there are deep and rich friendships that don't involve picking me up, if you will, or carrying me.
Yeah. It's not necessarily like a rite of passage. It's just
right.
If you're in the right place at the right time, you're gonna be involved in that, and otherwise.
Yeah, and so I think it's kind of a mindset, and I don't know if this is a term, but a heart set, of saying, well, I haven't done it, but I'm willing to when that time comes, or if that time comes.
Yeah, when I read the book, or I have been able to interact with you and watch this in real time, that's what I find so compelling and moving, is it's not just a book about the poetry of friendship. It's the book. These are experiences and conversations about the reality of a different kind of friendship. And I find it instructive because the whole time I'm encountering this or listening to these perspectives or hearing these stories, I'm like, this is what like friendship should just be. And I'm missing out on so much because I get to take the detour from the awkward moment. I get to avoid those places that your life brings people into, and they press in, and like you said, it's not very far, but it's just far enough that all of a sudden a whole new layer of depth of relationship, and the vulnerability of just being able to be around you is so it's just a gift in its ability to teach me things, others things. And that's going to be a great book. I love that we got the exclusive dish on that. That's great. Right here. You heard it first on the Bema podcast.
There you go.
Yeah. And we'll keep an eye on that whenever you have a link for that, when people can buy it, I'll add it to our show notes. So people who are listening in the future will be able to find that.
Thanks.
Yeah. So speaking of books, this book that I read of yours, We Carry Kevan, appropriately titled, two parts of this. I mean, the whole thing was just great. 5 stars for me, which Brent will tell you. 5 stars is that's a rare, that's like an endangered species for me on my Goodreads, but nevertheless, just a couple spots that just really, I remember every time I think of your book. first of all, chapter 17, titled My View from Here, you're coming back on your trip to Europe from Skellig Michael, which is the island where they famously filmed Luke Skywalker in the most recent episodes, and Rey when she goes to visit him. And you're coming back from that, and you have this chapter where for a bulk of the chapter, you have this conversation with Jesus, and was just one of the finest things I have ever read. Like, it was just so beautifully communicated. I remember calling my wife into my office, trying to read it to her, and I'm weeping too hard to communicate and read the chapter out loud to her. It was just so good. So I'll let everybody else buy the book so they can read that chapter as well. But then you have this other part that I found super interesting. I wanted to see what else you would comment on this. You have a chapter. You talk about you're in Europe. You go to visit this church that you're hanging out with this group of believers in another country, and they invite you to kind of this back room of the church where there's a statue of the Virgin Mary, and like they're trying to explain to you, like, we want to pray for your healing, and at first you're not really, it's not registering, and I'll read a little bit of it if you're okay with that, Kevin. Are you okay with me reading a little bit of your book?
Sure.
All right, I love that. All right, here we go. Still, it wasn't setting in. There have been many miracles to happen there, she added, and that's when it clicked. Now, I grew up in the South, where well-meaning charismatics run amok. Countless are the times that I've been offered healing prayer or invited to healing services by friends and strangers alike. This wouldn't necessarily catch me off guard or even bother me all that much, except that this time I was without my wheelchair. I had found that outside my wheelchair, the world looked very different. And with that revelation, I expected the different-looking world to see me differently, but that wasn't the case. For months, the focus had been on how cool it was that my friends were carrying me. They had been the miracle, not legs getting fixed. My disease had been overcome. It had been cured by my friends and me finding a way around it. No longer did it matter if I or anyone else was technically disabled. We'd proven that life could be lived regardless. That is a miracle. That is the healing power. That is the kingdom of heaven. And yet here we stood in a 1,500-year-old sanctuary being told it wasn't enough. I just thought that was unbelievably profound perspective, and just wanted to let's see what's the question I have in my notes. Could you speak to that experience as you go back even now, some years later, thinking back to that? Like, tell me more. That part captivated me.
Man, I'm trying to think of what to share from there. So I would actually like to share a little bit about what happened next, like as a result of that attempt by these people to heal me or to pray for healing. If that's okay, I'll just continue the story a little bit.
The floor is yours. I'm excited.
In an attempt to answer your question. And this can be found in the book, probably worded a bit more smoothly than I'll do right now. But we were in this old church. We were in France, and so there was kind of a language barrier, and that was part of what was the slow uptake on my part on what are they talking about, and then it clicked, and so we actually ended up saying, okay, we'll go back and look at the statue, but we really don't want you to pray over me. And they said, okay, that was good enough for them. And so we went back there, and they left us for a few minutes, and then my friends and I found a quiet corner after that, just to be on our own for a few minutes. But they found us again, and one of the ladies, long story short, suggested that I couldn't be healed because I didn't have enough faith. And the guys realized how that hit me, and how that really messed me up in the moment. I kind of shut down, and the part of the memory that really sticks with me the most when this story comes up. This moment is what stays with me the most, because when they realized what it did to me, they leaned in and they said, "Kevan, what do you want to do?" And I just barely managed to say, as I was shutting down, I said, "I need to get out of here." And it was like they turned into the Navy SEALs. Like they threw me on their backs and we just bolted for the door and we were gone like in seconds. And it was raining outside, which is why we had ended up in the church in the first place. That didn't matter to us anymore. Like they went straight for the metro, and we made our way back to our apartment. And so that's kind of my first thought is, just as you read, Marty, the miracle that we had experienced is the miracle that I've experienced my whole life, which is that that the Lord has put such rich friendships in my life and such amazing people, brothers and sisters, people that love him, and his work in their hearts have led them to, this relationship that we have where my miracle, my healing is that I don't need the arms and legs that work because I have theirs, mm-hmm. and that's more than enough for me, because, it's one thing to be able to climb a mountain and see a beautiful view. But what I get to experience is climbing a mountain and seeing a beautiful view with people that I love and people that love me. I get this amazing, rich experience in life of sharing my experiences with others and getting to witness theirs as well, and so part of the miracle is the community. It's not I don't know how you would say it, but yeah, that's the miracle. And so I feel like that's the perfect picture of it, of, wow, these guys, they loved me so much that in the moment they just snapped into place and took care of me, took care of the whole thing. But then the other part of that is that on the way home on the metro and getting back to our apartment and getting ready for bed and everything, I was still shut down, and I was having my own conversation with the Lord inside. It was just us. Mm. And, I'm so glad that you mentioned the conversation at the end of the book with Jesus, because that is kind of the pinnacle or the example of really what's going on in the rest of the book, is just this conversation with the Lord through experiences. And so it really lines up well with this part of the story in France, because I needed to remember that my identity was in Christ and not in my success or failure with disability. Because if my identity was in Christ, when someone said they wanted to pray to fix my body, then it would not have bothered me as much. But apparently in that moment, I had two other options. One was to be identifying with my disability, or toting around a new identity of overcoming the disability. Neither of which are actually right or okay. My identity needs to be in the forgiveness and love of Jesus Christ. And so that's where we are not shaken, right? That's where the word says we won't be ashamed or won't be put to shame. And so, I had this wrestling with the Lord on the way home. And what he reminded me of was in, I think it's one of Peter's letters, First or Second Peter, he says he refers to our faith, and he says our faith, and then he describes it as our faith, comma, the salvation of our souls, right? The outcome of our faith, the salvation of our souls. Like that's the outcome of our faith is salvation, not, finances or physical healing or friendships or, any of it. All of that is just extra blessing. It's just a perk, but
right.
But the outcome of our faith is a relationship with him and the salvation of our souls. So I had to be reminded of that and brought back into the center and refocused. And he was faithful to do that, as he always is.
Yeah, you bring that phrase right back around in that 17th chapter that I love so much. And I loved how you dropped that right at the spot that you did in that chapter. Because it is, and just to be clear, like we have a lot of our listeners are from a more charismatic tradition and participate in some of those things. So I love what you just called it. Actually, a moment ago, you called it like the extra blessings. It's like it's like the extra perks. It's like the icing on the cake when we get to experience those things. But the actual like the goodness we're after is something else. And I have often wondered when you like read the Gospel of John and Jesus tells his disciples, you will do greater things than these, referring to the things that he has done. You'll do greater things than these. And you think to yourself, like, how in the world could that be possible? Unless what Jesus is referring to is the things that we, plural, will all do together through the power of his Spirit. And I think of you saying, I could climb the mountain on my own, or I could climb the mountain through the community and friendship and assistance and help and grace and generosity and hospitality of others. Which is the bigger miracle? Which is the greater thing?
Yeah, and isn't that the kingdom?
Right. So I just think that is part of what I learned from your story and part of what you graciously teach us as you tell it. And I just love that. So, Brent, what do you have?
Well, I was just thinking, if you want to share, one of the things you mentioned in the book is that being in the backpack all of a sudden put you at a perspective 2.5 feet higher than you had been used to your whole life. And I think there's just so many of us, basically all of us, who have gone through life with the exact same perspective. And maybe we don't have that opportunity to get that 2.5 foot higher perspective. But I'm just wondering if there's any other stories, any other experiences you've had maybe outside of the book or outside of what you wrote about in the book that can help us have some sort of change in perspective that we can see things that we would otherwise miss.
Yeah, change in perspective. Well, ironically, speaking of a change in perspective, I just to go back to this story about the church in France for a second, I was actually writing about it this week again for something else. And I realized, that my wrestling and my shutting down, my whole experience was between me and the Lord. And the problem was me, not these people who were asking to pray for me and everything. It's, it was, it was part of their job, but it was also, they really had a conviction to do this, and so I think, for anyone that looks for the book and seeks that out and reads that part, I don't think it comes across this way, but I like you said, Marty, I do want to be careful that, the Lord works in these ways. And if he chooses to do that in my own life, that will be wonderful. But, in that moment, the issue was my own identity and where I was placing my focus and my hope. And so that's something I realized this week as I was looking back on that story, actually, as far as a perspective that they weren't wrong in what they did. And just offering them some some grace within that moment. But yeah, it's funny because when I'm in the backpack, my chin is about the height of the top of the head of whoever is carrying me. So, if someone's 5 foot, I'm going to be about 5 foot and, 5-6 inches above that. And so, if someone's 6'8", I'm going to be a little bit taller, but, it's really amazing because most of my life I've spent looking at belt buckles and book bags, and needing to look up to see people's faces. And suddenly I am thrust into the air, not only at eye level, but actually above that oftentimes. And it's remarkable what you get to see from up there. I remember one day we were at the train station and we were looking for a friend, and everyone was like looking to me to find them because they were like, well, you're the tallest one, figure it out for us. And that has never been the case in my entire life until that moment. So I'm thankful for that. But, the other thing about this is that, and not to sound like a broken record, but I was only that height because of my friends and because of the community around me. And so, Brent, to your question, I think something that we can learn and take to heart is that friendships and relationships in interacting with the world around us and our community gives us a new depth perception. So the more you get to know people, you get their perspective, and you just suddenly your world goes from, let's say our own perspective is 2-dimensional, and then we add some people, it becomes a little more 3D and a little more and a little more, until next thing you know, you're in this whole cosmos of brilliant depth, and you're beyond 3D, because you're in a community of people. And it just gives you this new depth perception that I really appreciate, that I again, with the vulnerability of being in the friendships that I have, I get to experience that a lot.
One of the things, Kevan, as I've spent time with you or even been able to just admire you from afar and what you do, you always have this sense of joy. Like the perfect example of this was when I asked you to describe, tell us, if you're not visually sitting in the same room with you, tell us about and you crack a joke about being a redhead. I mean, just such there's such a levity to your personality, a complete lack of complaining or resentment. You are unbelievably gracious and kind to others. And I'm sure you have your days. I'm sure. But where does that come from? How do you pull that off in your life? How can you go through the things that you have to experience every single day and come out of that with this? Yeah, it's very admirable. So tell me more about where that might come from, or what you think we might be looking at there.
I mean, it comes from Jesus, that's at the core of it. That's really it. It's a relationship with the Lord that gives me hope and joy and sustains me through difficult things, which there are difficult things with my disability. And so I guess maybe to spread that out more and say, with Jesus being the umbrella, and he comes through these different things. I grew up in a home with 2 siblings, a brother and a sister. My sister also has spinal muscular atrophy. And so we grew up having each other to understand what we were going through, which I think really helped to alleviate any potential buildup of bitterness or frustration, that there was always somebody else there who said, I get it, I know, and I'm right next to you through all of this. Likewise, my brother is I mean, he grew up to be a cartoonist. Like he's just full of fun and imagination, and so as well as my sister and I are too, and my parents are with a lot of grace. They are go-getters. They're not going to be told no. They're going to really just take life by the horns and go for it. And so yeah, just grew up in a very creative, fun home that was full of life, and Christ was at the center of that. And so I think that's where a lot of it comes from, is that it's been fostered in me since day one. And so yeah, I think my parents and my siblings have a lot to do with that. And then growing up, you eventually move out of your parents' house. You eventually don't live with your siblings, and you have to make decisions of your own. And I, with my walk with the Lord and with my friendships and the people around me, I have just over the years had to make very conscious decisions to choose joy and to choose hope and to look to the Lord over and over. And yeah, it's kind of a daily decision. I often say that I grew up in a home where we woke up in the morning and said, what can I do today and what do I want to do today? And you find the marriage between those two, and you kind of push the envelope of what you can do, and you're okay with what you can't, and you just kind of find the balance. And so similarly, living, as an adult with a disability, I have to wake up each day and give it to the Lord, and like you said, Marty, that's I don't always do that well. That definitely is the case. But I don't think we've been, we are called to holiness, but I don't think we're expected in this life to be perfect. We're expected to come running back to Him. And so my hope is that I continue to do that. And that's my aim, and that's how I keep the joy and the humor going. And then the last part of that is the friends that I choose to surround myself with, and it's not even just the friends; it's the friends I choose to be around, and the books I choose to read, the movies I choose to watch, the music I choose to listen to. It's what you put in is gonna come out, because it goes in, it hangs out in your heart, and then it comes out. And so I have to make the conscious decision and the right moves to put things in that are going to foster joy and hope and love and care for others. I have to make the decision every day to put others first. Even though I'm the one that has the clear need, I need to put them first. And so as a small example of that is when each day we have a different guy that comes over and gets me up in the morning, and it's all volunteer. As a side note, it's all the guys that come and get me up in the morning, give me a shower and get me dressed. They're all just friends who do it because they're friends. They're not paid caregivers or nurses or anything. And so when they arrive, they walk into the house. Katie greets them at the door and offers a cup of coffee, and they come in, and I'm laying in bed ready to go. And my mind's been racing of what I need to do for the day. But what I have to do is very intentionally, when they walk through the door, the first thing that I have to say is, how are you doing? and put them first. Because and there's something, it's still difficult, but it's almost easier because I know that they are there to put me first. So I don't have to worry about myself. I can put them first, And so it's just such a testament of the friendships that I don't even have to worry about myself. I get to worry about them because they're going to take care of me. So
it almost seems like you have a very you're a human being like the rest of us. You battle with a lot of the same things that we, and yet you also have these circumstances that are not only a struggle, but you've also turned them into a gift and an ability to remind you of things that we probably too quickly in a more normative experience forget ever. These things should be true for each and every one of us. And yeah, so I think in a lot of ways you've even gotten into that next question we had. So I'm going to ask you about your nonprofit, Kevan. Can you tell us more about your nonprofit and the work that you do there?
Sure. Yeah. So the nonprofit, as Brent mentioned at the beginning, is called We Carry Kevan. The same name as the book. It was the name of our project, I guess you could say, of going to Europe. When we did a fundraiser and everything, we just put it all under that name. So it came out of our efforts to go to Europe, because when that kind of got picked up by social media and news and everything, we started hearing from families from all over the world, hundreds of families that said, "Where did you get this backpack? And where did you get these friends? And how are you making this happen?" And I realized a couple of things. I realized that it wasn't going to be a formula. You don't just it's not a 5-step plan to have friends like this or to have a backpack or anything. And also I could not possibly be that close and intentional of a friend to all these people. I'm one person. And so I went to a couple of friends, a pastor of mine and just a few others. In fact, Tony and Maria Fingerly, they were part of this too. And just sat down with them and said, we need to create an entity, a space, if you will, for us to drive all this traffic. When families write and ask these questions, I need to point them somewhere. And so we developed this nonprofit, and our goal is to mobilize families with disabilities by coming alongside them and helping them redefine accessibility as we know it, so that it's not all about elevators and automatic doors and wheelchairs and government, help and hired caregivers. All of these things are great and are helpful, but we also need to think outside the box and realize that you don't want to put an elevator on Skellig Michael where Luke Skywalker was. That's not appropriate. But if you think outside the box and get some friends to carry you in a backpack, then you can be there. And so that's kind of how it started. We since then, that was in 2017, that we started the nonprofit. And another aspect of that is that we started working with a backpack company to take the idea that we did for the backpack and make it on a massive scale for more families to use. So it's a completely adaptable, customizable carrier to put someone in. And we started distributing those about 2 years ago. And since then, we have been able to distribute about 600 of them in almost 30 countries.
Wow.
Around the world. And we actually, we should be getting a new shipment this week. And about half of it is going to go right out the door because we have people waiting for them. So the need is there. And, our hope down the road is for it to not just be backpacks, but that's what the Lord has given us for now. That's what's in front of us. So we want to steward that well and get that to families who can use it and help them also realize that, the backpack is great, but there's a deeper message behind the backpack, which is coming together and having community around you and friends and family. And guys, the stories that we've gotten from families, the photos we've gotten and the videos are just unbelievable. You get to see where families used to have to split up, where dad would stay with this kid because he's in a wheelchair while mom took the others further up the trail, or whatever they had to do. Now the family is going together, and you get to see this family unit at the peak of a mountain, or walking on a frozen lake, or exploring a cave somewhere. And it's just, it's been really amazing to get to be part of those stories and those lives. And so last year we started a new aspect of that, which is that we're actually going and visiting some of these families. And then we find where a few of them live in the same area, and we do a hike together so that they get to meet and experience an adventure as a group, kind of coming alongside them and fostering community with them, and just doing that by example, and being friends with them as best we can. And so it's been a really cool experience so far, and looking forward to seeing where the Lord takes it next.
Yeah, one of the things that I think I really appreciate in your process of making the backpack that you talked about in the book is your own involvement in what's happening. The line that I highlighted was, while Tom and the fabricators worked to make the pack more comfortable, I worked toward higher pain tolerance, and we met somewhere in the middle. So it's not like you're expecting the backpack to be this like magical device that just solves all the problems. Like you still have a part to play. And you talked about it later on in the book, like when you were in pain, like taking that pain and using that as a way to focus your attention on what you're experiencing, and not just focus on how terrible it is, but use it to enhance the experience. What are some of the things that you are hearing back from people, those types of experiences where they've gone out with the backpacks? 600 backpacks is just crazy. Like, you've got to have some stories of people who have gone out and they've experienced something that they weren't expecting, or in a way that they weren't expecting. And then what can people do to help you with your nonprofit to help give that to even more people?
Yeah, that's a great question. You're right. I mean, we have so many stories, and what I love the most actually is getting to hear and see these stories of families that, I don't know, they just blow my mind with what they're doing. They're coming up with ideas of what to do and how to do it with the backpack that are far beyond what I would have expected, or anything that I would personally do, and I love that they own it. Like they really own it and make it their own thing. And so, I know there's a family actually in Ohio. They live on a farm, and the mom takes her son out in the backpack every day to do the chores, to feed the chickens and the goats and the pigs and everything. And so he he's in the backpack, but he's at the right height where he can throw the seed out for the chickens or hold the water bucket to take over to the goats and different stuff like that. And they use it every day for this like really practical thing that the mom could go out and do on her own, but she wants to experience it with her son. And I just think that's a really beautiful picture of family and a mom saying, well, other parents would, have their kids come out and do the chores with them for a bonding and growing experience. This is how we have to do it with my son. And so I love that. There've been, I mentioned a frozen lake. I talked to a family recently and they showed me a picture, and I thought that they were just standing out on like a field that was covered in snow. And the mom said, "Oh no, that's water under us. It's frozen over. We walked out to an island that you normally can't get to." And I'm like, what? I'm not going to do that. And yet you guys did that. That's so amazing. We've had pictures from like families in Russia and Colorado, like different places with a lot of mountains and just really beautiful views that were not easy to get to. And yet they make it happen. And then at the same time, we have families like we heard from one, I think they were in the Philippines, where they, so you can, as a side note, you can either buy a backpack or you can apply for a scholarship. And one of the questions in the scholarship is, if you get this backpack, how will it be used? Like how will it benefit you and your family? And so this one family wrote, and I think they were in the Philippines, and they said, well, our child has a wheelchair, but we don't have a vehicle, and we can't get his wheelchair on the bus, and we can't afford a handicapped taxi. And so if we have your backpack, we can put him in the backpack and get on the bus and actually take him to his doctor appointments. So you have these like outrageous fun adventures, and then you have really practical needs that get to be met. And all the while, these kids are experiencing a new and a new level of attachment, of being on their parents' backs or their siblings' backs or their friends' backs. And I've always felt like the backpack is an invitation where whoever is carrying the person is saying, I want you with me, and I want you right here by my ear and right here at my eye level so that I can hear you and you can see what I'm seeing. Like, you're literally attached to someone's back. There's a connection that happens between the two people, that's really important, I think, for humanity. and I've been thankful for it in my own friendships. But yeah, so a tool that my friends and I came up with for a silly, you could call it a silly adventure to Europe has now become something that can really be life-changing for families and kids. So we're thankful to be part of that. And you asked how people can be involved. So I mentioned that the people can apply for scholarships for the backpack. I would say about half, maybe a little over half of the backpacks that we distribute are through that scholarship. But in order to give those away, we need to have them sponsored and covered on our end. And so on the website, there's a way to sponsor a backpack. You can do it yourself or get a group of friends to do it. That's a great way for people to be involved. And then, we have a mailing list and all of that good stuff. A big thing that people can do to help is just spread the story, share what you hear on this podcast, share what you read, or if you look us up on YouTube and just continue to spread the story to let it inspire others. And also, I would say, however it inspires you to take action, do that, whether it's, finding somewhere to volunteer, with somewhere with disabilities, or just opening the door for someone. I think the greatest thing that we can do, both able-bodied and disabled people, the greatest thing we can do in the context of this, what we're talking about, friendship and disability and accessibility, the greatest thing we can do is to take notice and make ourselves pay attention and just love others and, come alongside them, whether that's extremely by saying, hey, I'd love to, help you out with caregiving or your needs. Or can I pick up groceries for you? The big things, or just sit with them, like meet them in a coffee shop and say hi. Actually like how I met Tony and Maria. Maria walked in and saw me and was like, hey, how are you? How are you today? And that was how our friendship began. And so I think if we just make ourselves aware, make ourselves sensitive to what's going on around us and what the Lord would like to do through that, that would be a great start. I'll finish by saying that I told the guys before the show that I've been reading through 2 Corinthians, and one of the biggest things that has stuck out to me is that at one point Paul is raving about the church in Macedonia and how he's seeing their heart to serve others and love others and to provide for them and care for them. And he said, how does he put it? He says, this was the greatest thing to us, is that they actually gave themselves first to the Lord and then to us and to those around us to serve. And so, I just would want to reiterate that our first step is to seek the Lord and to surrender to Him. And then with that strength and that joy and that hope and that sustainability that we find in Him, then we move forward and we love those around us. I think that's the greatest thing we can be doing.
I love how appropriate the idea would be of a group of people sponsoring a backpack. How appropriate would be a group of friends,
right?
That'd be well done. Well, Kevan, we're not done with you yet. You're sticking around to help us talk about the Gospel of John. We're going to dive back into our verse by verse, and you're gonna hang out in the next episode with us to add your perspective, which I'm
awesome,
very excited about. Is there anything else we need to know about Kevan Chandler? Anything else we've left out that we would be remiss if we didn't talk about?
I don't think so. If there is, we'll bring it up next time. Who knows? So.
I love the fact that there's a next time. I love it.
Me too.
All right. Well, as far as people getting connected to you, I assume your We Carry Kevan website is probably the best way to do that. Yeah?
Yeah, I would say so.
All right. Well, we'll have links to that in the show notes. But that does it for this episode, Kevan. We're very glad that you had a chance to join us. If you want to get a hold of Marty, you can find him on Twitter at Marty Solomon. I'm at BCB, and you can find more details about the show at BayamAudiscipleship.com. So thanks for joining us on the Bayam Podcast. We'll talk to you again soon.